Okay, short reviews for April 13th. Now, there's a ton of things to talk about, especially leading into the 21st to next Friday. And I wanted to get to a bunch of releases last week and this week that pertain to just a couple of interesting outliers, a couple of obvious releases. But I had to cut this one down because there was a couple of records that I had to review. I really got into Dozer's sort of comeback record and wanted to write a full review of that. So we're cut down to 7 this week, and we'll get right into it with Unhallowed. This is a German black metal band which is very much in the style of Dissection, and not directly Storm of the Lightsbane all the way through, but it is in the spirit of that music, and this is becoming more common in German black metal to lean towards the classic melodicism of it all, and I think it's my favorite thing in German black metal since, well, I don't know. I think if there was a new Ascension record, I'd be more excited about that. But this is a great band. They sort of came out of nowhere in 2021, and this is their debut full length. And it is 6 songs that are about 6 minutes long that are all very well composed, beautifully melodic, aggressive, noisome, and evocative in their movement. There is nothing I could say that is essentially wrong with what they're doing here. It is just a beautifully made record that has the right amount of kind of noxious, aggressive production values that give some room noise to the experience that make it feel a little bit more wrathful and aggressive. So this is a higher recommendation of the lot this week, though there are some pretty good records alongside it. And I'd meant to write a full review of this record, but I think this record will speak for itself the moment you hear a clip, and you should want to buy it right then and there. Hallowed is the debut full-length from Altari, which is an Icelandic black metal band from members of a band you might remember from the Invictus roster back in 2015 or so, Abominor. And they played more of a dissonant black metal style, whereas this is decidedly attempting to be something else. It wants to be an outlier within the already sort of outlandish and creative Icelandic black metal sphere, and they clearly take influence from post-punk, and I don't mean the gothic crap so much as I do Killing Joke, the early, 84 to about 88 Killing Joke, revivalist bands like Interpol, and that naturally translates to something like Aranzi Pazuzu in terms of creating a surreal black metal environment that is informed by post-punk guitar techniques and a lot of guitar effects. We could tangentially compare that approach to what Suffering Hour are doing now, but this is very different. It uses clean guitar much more often for sort of the lead melodies, and it jangles along in a way that is not typical for black metal treatments of post-punk. So if this record was a little bit more memorable in terms of just the songwriting, I think that it would have knocked it out of the park. It is very effective in a textural sense in creating interesting riffs and sort of atmosphere that is psychedelic and unique. I think they just needed to find their sort of hot point for catchier songs, because it kind of calls for it with the influence that they're leaning into, and they get there most of the way there throughout the album. But I feel like it just needed another push into that direction where maybe they were a little bit more bold with framing that with a good song that was a little bit catchier. That's just my note. It is a great record. It is unique, and it is worth checking out. first sighting is the debut full length from Bloodstar, which is a band that is gathered between members of the Salt Lake City, Utah area scene, and is on this record is rounded out by drums from one of the members of Spell. So this is a heavy rock influenced heavy metal band, which is aiming much more for a throwback sort of anthemic heavy metal style, that not necessarily the power metal side of things, but the just kind of stomping pre-speed metal feeling. Now, it's just too laid back of a record for me. I don't think there's anything wrong with these songs. I think the performances are strong. They're just not delivered with such energy that it yanked me out of my skin or just roused me in any way. It takes a while to get to sort of the more speedier kind of Motorhead paced songs later on in the album, but by the end of the record, they've sort of lost the plot a little bit. And I only say that mostly because I think The Observers is a strange choice, because we're just starting to warm up to the catchier pieces that have been arranged for the vocalist, and we're getting a sense of her register and getting a personality kind of building up in those first three songs. And then The Observers kind of takes that away by having the guitarist sing. I would really like to hear what her version of that song would have been with her vocals, because it would have rounded out the album and its charm in a stronger way than sort of just going for that Blue Oyster Cult kind of moany moment, which it just doesn't work for me in the middle. So it's not a bad record. I think it'll be for a specific taste in the new wave of traditional heavy metal. Margarita Witch Cult is a doom rock band out of, well, a stoner rock / doom metal group out of Birmingham, England. And their style is exuberant. It is consistently active. It's full of energy. It is heavy rock music from a stoner rock perspective that incorporates plenty of exciting classic doom and heavy psychedelic rock influences. And there's just a sort of fuzzed over electricity coming off of this debut, which is a lot of fun. It's sort of like maybe a younger generation's take on the sort of gloomy but still kind of kicking about fun of like Electric Wizard, but there's also like Fu Manchu sized energy behind this thing, which is just out the gates just a lot more interesting and engaging than a lot of stoner rock and stoner metal adjacent doom flavored things. So I would give it a higher recommendation if it delivered the doom that it suggested it was ready with. I think this is just like a great rock record that feels like it really gets the zeal of the 70s heavy metal ideal. It's just that it doesn't necessarily lean into doom metal in a way that fully gets there on like consistently, and that's not even the major issue. The thing is that they're doing so many things and doing so many things well that it never fully melds into one fully effective personality just yet. So they really get a lot of points for just storming out of the gates with a great attention to detail, very fine performances, just very strong showing. I think it just needs to be milled over until it's a unique idea that is personal to them. Like, these guys are ready to perform and just kick out the jams and all that. This record just kind of has a ton of songs that hit one after another, and they're all pretty good, but there's nothing cohesive about it quite yet. So, not a major complaint, but I'm just, justifying the score there. Schwert is a first EP from Barditis, which is a neo-folk group between two people who are known for their own neo-folk or projects. Uh, Uwe Nolt of Orplid and Christian of Stern Days Boons. You probably don't, maybe you've heard of Orplid if you're a fan of martial neofolk and kind of the neoclassical side and romanticist German scene. But Stern Days Boons is a different project, which is worth looking up if you haven't heard it. I think their record came out in 2014, but I don't know what they've done since. Uh, so the idea for this record is to take this very well celebrated poet and vocalist and put a little bit more of a folkish, maybe almost black metal feeling behind his work. And it is a spectacular showing here. I think anytime that Nolt gets behind a microphone, it's very impressive. I think that he's a very passionate performer who has just such a strong register and such a commanding voice, which is, it comes from a great appreciation for a lot of classic music, especially German music. So what we get here is just a short EP of, well, it's about 20 minutes, so it is substantial, where we get a showcase of what's to come when they finally do make a full length, and I'm pretty excited about that. I'm not excited about the graphic design is not stunning to me just yet, but the songs and their performances are just kind of shockingly effective, especially once I'd listened to it a few times. I'm not fluent in German, but the language is often simple enough to where some of it is conveyed, and they do have English lyrics available to some of these songs. So worth checking out if you're a fan of the darker side of neofolk, in terms of incorporating just a little bit of like black metal, or it really isn't black metal in spirit, black metal in some instrumentation, but it really is more of a folkish undertaking here. So definitely worth checking out. Spellbinder is the debut full-length from Girdly, which is a British atmospheric black metal record, which I'll say, it is above average, but actually pretty standard in terms of just a listening experience. There's a couple of big riffs that start off that first song. There's a couple of songs later on that are pretty strong, mostly just 603 but most of this record just floats on by. The drumming is very good. The production values are very strong. It is world class in that sense, but they've just done nothing but one guitar tone. Well, per my own observations, of course, but it never takes off anywhere interesting. It sort of waffles along for the first several songs and eventually builds up to an interesting point. And not for lack of searching for nuance, I think that it's just a very straightforward record that is a bit sleepy for my own taste. And it does eventually wake up a bit, but then the record is basically over at that point. So I was a little frustrated with that because I liked the visual appeal, the production values, but they just hadn't done enough with the songwriting to really keep me coming back to this record. So make your own judgment from there. Opodar is an Italian, fairly well-known melodic death thrash metal band. Not exactly, they're sort of an interesting place between like the Haunted stuff, which is more focused on groove metal, and they do lean into some classic thrash metal influences here and there, while also pretty effectively conveying themselves as an extreme metal band. So there's an interesting midpoint there that is always been interesting about their sound, which it was kind of Viking themed melodic death thrash early on, and that has changed since. And this record deals with the 13th chapter of Dante Alighieri's Inferno, the first part of his great work, and um, that's enough to get me in and kind of read the lyrics and check it out. And I think that the whole package is impressive, and it is naturally kind of striking as it bursts out of the speaker to start, but it's not really my style. And kind of like I was saying with the Hate Sphere record from a couple of weeks ago, or a month ago or so, it's all quite effective to listen to. It just doesn't ever register as anything I'd want to come back to on a repeated basis.